With Star Trek returning to the Delta Quadrant for Star Trek Prodigy, I thought a good notion for a video would be to look at Voyager's time in that far end of the galaxy and pick up on some of the unresolved plot threads or things that I would like to see expanded upon in future media. Number 1. The Vidiians were one of the earliest species encountered by Voyager that posed a significant technological threat, with their comparatively advanced technology of harvesting organs born of desperation to survive. The Phage crippled their entire species around 2,000 years ago and attacked them at a genetic level. On top of this, it adapted quickly to every countermeasure that the Vidiians employed and soon spread throughout their species. The only way to survive was to adapt healthy organs and tissues to match the genetics of a Vidiian patient and graft them on. In the episode Think Tank, in 2375, an aforementioned group of scientists got together and claimed to have created a cure for the Phage, for a price, but nonetheless a cure is a cure. According to Kuros of the Think Tank, anyway, the Phage is well on its way to being removed from the Vidiians' society forever. Before their illness, they were apparently known as a race of explorers who revelled in artistic achievements, built beautiful cities, which eventually all fell into disrepair as their entire culture was shifted towards battling the Phage. So I would love to see where they are now that they have a cure. They no longer need to resort to slave labour, piracy and organ harvesting to survive, so have they thrown out those aspects of Vidiian life along with the Phage? I certainly hope so. I would love to see some more progress towards restoring their culture as described. Perhaps they even share their medical knowledge with others, but more than that, I just want to know that Kuros wasn't lying. Number 2. In Star Trek Picard, set in 2399, we learn that a broken down Borg cube referred to as the artifact was under the control of the Romulan Free State. It had been disabled sometime in the previous decade due to something it assimilated, but on board it was revealed that it had a Sikarian transporter device, a spatial trajector, had been added to the cube's assimilated technology, meaning that at some point between 2371 and 2389, the Borg had assimilated Sikarian technology. This is a pretty big deal, as these trajectors have a range of at least 40,000 light-years, although presumably they are limited to a small-scale travel, only a couple of people at a time based on what we saw, but even that's not certain. There was also a limit based on the need for a planetoid to have a specific mantle to focus the beam, so the absence of that on a Borg cube also hampers its range, but the Borg to have this capability at all is worrying. It also raises the obvious question. What happened to the Sikarians? Was their homeworld assimilated completely, or only just a select few who had either access or knowledge of the workings of the trajector? I'm just saying, it would be real nice to swing by Sikaris quickly just to check in on them. Number 3. Another big discovery of Voyager in its time in the Delta Quadrant was the expansive Voth ministry, who sailed the quadrant on their city ships and claimed a recorded ancestry of millions of years. It was also revealed that they were descended from Earth hadrosaurs, who had left the Solar System before mammals had even caught on as the latest craze. Unfortunately, such a revelation threatened the age-old power structure of their governmental doctrine and was buried. However, the truth had been uncovered once, and Voyager knows that truth, therefore it's likely Starfleet does. This, combined with their highly advanced levels of technology, is bound to make contacting the Voth a tantalising prospect for the Federation, despite how awkward or even dangerous such a meeting might go. To be honest, Starfleet rocking up at some point in the future, wanting to get to know the Voth, might be all well and good, until someone accidentally mentions the data Voyager uncovered. Then accusations of heresy would probably entail, and then a massive falling out. Considering the potential for disaster, I can completely understand if the Federation just decided to avoid the Voth as much as possible, but come on, don't you want to poke the wasp's nest a little? And that is how the Federation eventually gets itself wiped out, when an ambassador idly says to the Voth representative, "Oh, you look familiar." Number 4. Another ancient species that Voyager encounters, and one much closer to the Beta Quadrant, is the Hirogen, This is a species dedicated entirely to hunting and the pursuit of prey of all kinds. The more dangerous, the better. Their nomadic culture has had them expanding outwards over generations, moving ever further away from their original territory, wherever that lies in the Delta Quadrant, becoming ever more sparse. There were attempts by those within their species to create some form of unity among them, and eventually they were even gifted holographic technology to try to simulate hunting grounds and create a more centralised base of power, instead of chasing prey ever further and further away from one another. I want to see if they embraced this, or if many did continue to hunt farther and farther afield. In the self-contained lore of Star Trek Online, for example, the Hirogen did continue to diffuse, and by the early 25th century, some had eventually reached the Beta Quadrant, and began to set up shop in the former Romulan territories, hunting the races of the Alpha and Beta Quadrants. Over the generations, I see no reason that they would not have been capable of expanding that far, and I think it would be cool to see them among the more familiar local species, but also that would probably bode poorly for them because it means that they're still a doomed people. Number 5. Now this one is a bit more of a personal favourite and less of a plot thread to be picked up on again, and more just, well, the Swarm. Just, what are they? I want to know more. They are super territorial, which is a blessing really, because they'll probably not expand, but that means we're likely never to encounter them again unless a ship travels into the midst of the Delta again. However, they do lay claim to an expansive region of space, one that would have cost Voyager 15 months to travel around, and most vessels that do violate their territory are found with all the crew dead. This hostility reveals very little about them, and we can speculate all day, but honestly I just want to actually know more about them. What are they after? Why are they so hostile? How did they develop their tech, including the first use of transporters seen from a Delta Quadrant race? And lastly, number 6. Species 8472. After the alliance with the Borg, Voyager pretty much painted a huge target on the back of the Federation and convinced 8472 that they may need to preemptively attack or infiltrate Starfleet to protect themselves. Fortunately, Voyager was able to repair the damage they had done and placate the Outer Realm species. But is that truly the end for them? Considering the level of involvement they had with the Borg, I think Starfleet would very much like to talk with them about an alliance or something. Additionally, they dwell in fluidic space, a dimension beyond our own, so that is an entirely new phenomena to explore. The reappearance of 8472 is not even that far-fetched, as we hear from Oxum, a resident of the Borg Unimatrix Zero, that he is on a Borg ship in the Beta Quadrant, keeping an eye on a border with fluidic space. So there are dimensional tears to 8472's home realm in the Beta Quadrant somewhere, which is far more readily accessible than the Delta. Ideally, it would be great if Starfleet could ally with them against future Borg incursions, but I also wouldn't mind if 8472 continued to attempt to guard against our dimension as a whole by deploying its shape-shifting spies among the various powers. So, that is my list of 6 plot threads that I would like to see revisited from the Delta Quadrant. I don't really think we'll get anything like this from Prodigy, but these are things that it would be cool to see brought back around into continuity to help tie the universe together. Voyager left a lot of waves as it sailed through the Delta Quadrant, and it would be great to see how those ripples impacted later down the line. What other plot elements were touched on in the Delta Quadrant, or potential stories set up that you'd rather see than these? I was going to include the Borg in general, but I don't think Star Trek is really in danger of forgetting about them anytime soon. Thanks for watching this list, and I'll see you again soon for another sci-fi video. I've been Rick. Thanks again, and goodbye.